I set my fork down with the kind of calm that makes guilty people start looking for exits. The Thanksgiving noise at Aunt Renee's dining table did not stop right away. Uncle Harold was still talking about his golf swing as if anyone had asked. My cousin Brianna was scrolling through her phone with one hand and nudging her husband Terrence away from the macaroni with the other. Kids ran somewhere near the hallway. A football game hummed from the living room. The table was crowded with turkey, dressing, candied yams, collard greens, 3 different potato dishes, and a green bean casserole nobody wanted, but everyone praised because Aunt Renee was sensitive about it. Then my mother's laugh cut through the room, that loud, polished, performative laugh, the one that always arrived right before she turned my life into entertainment. "Serena is 30 and still renting that little matchbox apartment," Vanessa Ellis announced, lifting her wine glass like she was making a toast. "Oh, can you believe it? Meanwhile, Brianna and Terrence just bought that gorgeous condo downtown." The room did not go silent. Not at first. But I felt the shift, that tiny change in the air when people realize the joke has teeth. Brianna looked up from her phone, uncomfortable. "Aunt Vanessa, Mom did not help us with the down payment or anything." "Of course she did not," my mother said, waving one hand. "You two are responsible adults. You plan. You make good choices." Then her eyes landed on me. She smiled. "Some of us just never seem to get our financial lives together." My hands rested flat on either side of my plate. The tablecloth was cream-colored, embroidered with little gold leaves. Aunt Renee only used it twice a year, and I remembered helping her iron it when I was 14, back when being useful still felt like being loved. I counted the repeating pattern. 1 leaf, 2, 3. "You are absolutely right, Mom," I said. My voice came out smooth, pleasant even. My mother's smile widened because she mistook agreement for surrender. She was already inhaling for the next cut. Maybe my car, maybe my salary, maybe the fact that I had not been on vacation in 3 years because every spare dollar kept disappearing into emergencies that were never mine. "I should be saving more," I continued. "That is why I canceled the standing mortgage transfer to your account this morning." Silence landed all at once, hard, complete. My mother's wine glass froze halfway to her mouth. The color drained from her face in layers, like someone erasing her from the inside out. "You what?" "The $1,800, I said. "The transfer that has gone out on the 1st of every month for the last 2 years. I canceled it." Aunt Renee's fork hit her plate. Uncle Harold stopped mid-golf. Brianna's phone lowered into her lap. I folded my napkin beside my plate. "Good luck with the mortgage." "Serena." My mother's voice sharpened. "This is not funny." "I am not laughing." Earlier that afternoon, I had sat in my car outside Aunt Renee's house with my banking app open and my thumb hovering over the red button. Cancel recurring transfer. I had opened that screen before, dozens of times. Usually after one of my mother's comments, usually after paying my own rent late, usually after standing in a grocery aisle doing mental math over whether I could afford berries or whether fruit had become a luxury this month. Every time I closed the app, I told myself next month would be different. Next month, Mom would thank me in front of people. Next month, she would stop calling me irresponsible while living in a townhouse I helped keep. Next month, I would explain everything calmly and she would understand. But there is no month where a person who benefits from your silence wakes up and rewards you for it. So that afternoon, while my relatives carried pies and foil-covered dishes inside, I pressed cancel. The app asked if I was sure. I confirmed. The first time I ever sent my mother mortgage money, I had called it temporary. She called me crying on a Sunday night, saying the refinance payment had caught her off guard and she only needed help for a month or 2. Her voice sounded small enough to make me forget every hard edge she had ever shown me. I transferred $1,800 while standing barefoot in my kitchen, then ate crackers and peanut butter for dinner because grocery money had become mortgage money. The second month, she said the bank had made another mistake. The third month, she said she would pay me back after her tax refund. By the 6th month, she stopped explaining. By the 12th, she had started criticizing my rent. By the 18th, she was telling relatives I lacked discipline. That was the part that finally hollowed me out, not the money alone, the performance. She accepted my help privately and used my sacrifice publicly as evidence that I was failing. Then I walked into Thanksgiving dinner and waited for my mother to do what she always did. She did not disappoint. Now she pushed back from the table so hard her chair scraped the floor. "After everything I have done for you?" There it was. The family hymn. "I raised you, I sacrificed for you, and this is how you repay me? By humiliating me in front of everyone?" The room held its breath. This was the part where I was supposed to apologize. Everyone knew the scene. Serena softens. Serena explains she did not mean it. Serena promises to keep paying. Vanessa cries. Aunt Renee says family is complicated. Uncle Harold asks someone to pass dessert because men like him prefer conflict after pie. I stood instead. My hands did not shake. Not yet. That would come later in the car. I reached for my coat on the back of my chair and put it on slowly, button by button. "Enjoy dinner." "Serena Ellis, you sit back down." "No. You cannot just walk out." "I can. Watch me." Aunt Renee started to rise, maybe to block me, maybe to deliver some speech about respect for mothers and holiday grace. Whatever she saw in my face stopped her. Maybe it was the lack of tears. Maybe it was my jaw. Maybe it was that after 30 years of being the invisible daughter, the reliable one, the steady paycheck wrapped in skin, I finally looked like someone who had found the exit. The November air hit my face when I stepped outside, cold, sharp, real. I got into my car, closed the door, and let the family chaos muffle behind the glass. Only then did my hands start trembling, not from regret, from adrenaline. If you have ever been insulted by someone whose bills you were quietly paying, tell me where you are listening from tonight. There is a special kind of calm that comes when your last thread of patience finally snaps. The next morning, I built the spreadsheet. My apartment was quiet except for the refrigerator humming and traffic passing below my window. It was a one-bedroom on the 3rd floor of an older building with thin walls, uneven heat, and a kitchen so small I could touch the stove and sink at the same time. My mother called it a shoebox whenever she wanted to feel superior. I called it the place I paid for with money she had not managed to claim yet. Coffee went cold beside my laptop. I opened bank statements, credit card records, old texts, calendar notes, every piece of proof I had avoided gathering because totals make denial harder. Column A, date. Column B, amount. Column C, reason given. Column D, actual documentation. Column E, notes. The mortgage transfer was easiest. $1,800 on the 1st of every month, 24 months. $43,200, then the emergencies, brake repair, $800, water heater, $1,200, dental bill, $900, roof repair that could not wait, $4,000, furnace emergency, $2,500. Property taxes she had completely forgotten, $5,000. The big one in December, $13,000 when she called sobbing that the townhouse was going into foreclosure and she would be out on the street by Christmas if I did not help. I had emptied my savings. I had canceled a short trip with friends. I had wrapped discount gifts and smiled through the holiday while my mother wore a new cashmere sweater and told Aunt Renee she had found it on an amazing sale. The total at the bottom turned red because I made it red. $68,000. I stared at that number until the digits stopped looking like math and started looking like a crime scene. I saved the file. Serena Ellis Financial Support Record 2024 2026.xlsx. Then I saved it to cloud storage. Then I emailed it to myself. Then I printed a copy and put it in a folder. I had spent 2 years acting on feelings: guilt, fear, obligation, hope. Now I wanted evidence. My phone rang near noon. Dad. My father, Marcus Ellis, had been divorced from my mother for 12 years. He lived across town in a small house with a garage workshop, a garden he called therapy with tomatoes, and an ability to stay calm that used to annoy me because it seemed like distance. After Thanksgiving, distance looked wiser. "Hey," I answered. "Your aunt called me." "I figured." "Said you made a scene." I stated a fact at full volume. He exhaled. I could picture him leaning against his kitchen counter, one hand rubbing the back of his neck. Good for you. Something loosened in my chest. Mom called you too? She did. Wanted me to talk sense into you. And? I told her I agree with you. I shut my eyes. For 1 second I was 12 years old again, waiting for somebody to say my version of events mattered. Thank you. Serena, I need to ask you something. How much have you been paying? Mortgage alone? $43,200? He was quiet. Total with emergencies? $68,000. Jesus. Yep. I did not know it was that much. I thought you were helping with groceries or an occasional bill. She told everyone I was struggling and she was helping me learn responsibility, didn't she? His silence answered. Then he said, the divorce settlement was fair. Half the equity, half the accounts. She got $230,000 and the townhouse had no mortgage when she refinanced. She had no reason to need you. Where did it go? Where it always goes. Spa membership, shopping, hair appointments every 2 weeks. The kitchen remodel she did not need. The bathroom remodel she did not finish paying for. New furniture. Weekend trips. Your mother spends money to feel admired, then panics when admiration sends a bill. I looked at the spreadsheet. I knew. Knowing and hearing it confirmed are different. Yes. His voice softened. I should have asked sooner. You are asking now. Do not let them pull you back in. I am trying not to. Try harder than they cry. That almost made me laugh. When we hung up, I was still looking at the spreadsheet when someone knocked on my apartment door. Sharp, insistent raps. I knew before I opened it. Aunt Renee stood in the hallway wearing a camel coat and the expression of a woman who had been sent by the Committee on Family Duty. She did not wait for an invitation. She pushed past me into the apartment and scanned the room with quick judgment. Secondhand sofa, small dining table, stack of library books, scuffed baseboards, a plant on the windowsill I had managed to keep alive despite my schedule. We need to talk. Hello to you too. Do not be cute, Serena. I closed the door. Do you have any idea what you have done? Stopped paying my mother's mortgage. You humiliated her. She humiliated me. She was joking. She called me a financial failure while accepting $1,800 from me every month. Aunt Renee's mouth tightened. Family helps family. Does family mock family in public? Your mother is bad with money. She said it as if she were revealing a tender secret, as if I was supposed to become softer because everyone had quietly agreed to treat my mother's irresponsibility like a disability. Everyone knows that. But she raised you after your father left. Dad did not leave her broke. That is not the point. It is exactly the point. If you stop paying, she could lose that townhouse. Then she should sell it. Aunt Renee recoiled. She is 56 years old. I am 30. Why am I the only one young enough to start over? That stopped her. Only for a moment. Then her eyes sharpened. If she loses that house, everyone will know it is because you abandoned her. Your cousins, the church ladies, people at your job. There it was. Not concern. Leverage. My job? People talk. Then give them something accurate. I walked to my laptop, turned it around, and showed her the spreadsheet. The total sat at the bottom in red. $68,000. Say that number when you tell people what kind of daughter I am. Aunt Renee stared at the screen. Her face did not soften, but it lost certainty. That was enough. You can leave now. She did, though she slammed the door hard enough to rattle the frame. I sat back down and wrote the email before fear could grow legs. To Vanessa Ellis, Renee Porter. CC, Marcus Ellis. Subject, Financial Support Notice. Effective immediately, I will no longer provide financial support for mortgage payments or other expenses. Attached is documentation showing $68,000 in payments made between November 2024 and November 2026. This decision is final. Serena Ellis. I attached the spreadsheet. My finger hovered over send for one breath, then I clicked. The message left. My phone stayed silent for the rest of the evening. The silence should have scared me. Instead, for the first time in 2 years, I slept through the night. On Monday, my coworker Janelle tagged me in a comment thread during lunch. I did not even have to open the notification to know. My stomach knew before my brain did. My mother's post was public. Of course it was. Vanessa Ellis had never believed in private pain when public sympathy was available. The profile picture showed her at a charity gala from 3 years ago, wearing a beaded black dress I now suspected I had helped fund. The post was long, dramatic, and careful enough not to name me. Some people do not understand what it means to honor a parent. After all the sleepless nights, all the sacrifices, all the dreams a mother gives up to raise a child, that child can still turn around and abandon her when she needs help most. I am getting older. I will not be here forever. I pray some hearts soften before it is too late. She tagged Aunt Renee, Uncle Harold, 3 cousins, half the family friends who had been at Thanksgiving. The comments were already multiplying. Praying for you. Some children are so ungrateful. You deserve better. Mrs. Delaney from 2 doors down wrote, "A mother's love is never appreciated until it is gone." I set the phone face down on my desk. "Hey," Janelle said from the opening of my cubicle. Her expression had that careful neutrality people wear when they have seen your personal life leaking online and do not know whether to offer concern or ask for details. "Everything okay?" "Family stuff." I saw the post. Heat rushed into my face. Not shame, exposure. My mother's performance had crossed into the professional life I had built with discipline, competence, and carefully managed boundaries. "I am fine." "Okay, let me know if you need anything." Janelle backed away, but her eyes held curiosity. After she left, I opened the post again. 43 likes, then 47, then 52. I typed a response, 3 paragraphs, clear, factual, brutal. I listed the mortgage payments, the emergency transfers, the divorce settlement, the total. I wrote like I was preparing an audit memo, because that was the language I trusted most. My thumb hovered over post. 1 tap, and everyone would know. 1 tap, and I could stop being the villain. The office air conditioner clicked on above my desk. Somewhere in the break room, someone burned microwave popcorn. I read my response twice, then I deleted it, because that was the trap. My mother wanted a stage. If I stepped onto it, she would cry louder. Every fact would become cruelty. Every correction would become proof that I was attacking her. She controlled the terrain when the fight happened under her post, so I did something quieter. I hid the post, unfollowed her, unfollowed Aunt Renee, unfollowed the cousins who added little prayer hands under a lie. They could think what they wanted. I did not have to watch them rehearse it. 20 minutes later, Dad called. "I saw it," he said before hello. "Do not respond." I deleted my response. Good. People believe her. Some people need villains to keep their worldview organized. That is not comforting. No, but it is true. He paused. "Your mother did this to me during the divorce. She baited me until I reacted, then showed everyone the reaction. Do not give her the part she knows how to use." "So I just let her lie?" "You let her lie where it cannot reach your bank account." That sentence stayed with me. It did not make the day painless. By 3 o'clock, 2 more coworkers had seen the post. One avoided my desk entirely. Another asked if I needed resources, which was kind but mortifying because I knew she meant emotional resources and possibly HR. I went to the restroom, locked myself in a stall, and stared at the tile while my heart tried to climb out of my chest. For a few minutes, I hated my mother more for the office humiliation than for the money. Money can be counted. Public shame spreads in directions you cannot track. Then I washed my hands, looked at myself in the mirror, and repeated Dad's sentence under my breath. Where it cannot reach your bank account. If my reputation needed protecting, I would protect it with consistency, not a comment war. I went back to my desk, finished the quarterly reconciliation, and sent it to my manager 10 minutes early. That was my answer. That evening, Tasha from work texted, "Saw your mom's post through a mutual. Coffee?" Tasha had started in accounting the same week I did. We had survived training together, bonded over terrible spreadsheets, and remained close enough to tell the truth without adding pillows. We met at a cafe near my apartment, the kind with mismatched furniture and pastries that cost too much. She sat down and said, "My mother did this to my sister." No preamble, no pity, just recognition. "Different numbers," Tasha said, stirring oat milk into her coffee. "Same script. Public shaming, tragic mother act, financial emergencies that somehow always followed shopping trips. My sister paid rent, groceries, utilities. When she stopped, Mom told everyone she had been abandoned." "What happened?" "My sister moved to Arizona and changed her number." "That sounds extreme." "So does bleeding for people who keep cutting you." I looked into my coffee. It tasted burnt. I drank it anyway. Tasha leaned forward. "You cannot fix someone who uses your guilt as income." Back home, I changed my privacy settings, restricted lists, limited profile visibility. Unfollow without unfriending. I removed family members from the daily feed of my life one by one. Not because I was hiding, but because peace sometimes starts as digital housekeeping. The quiet that followed felt intentional. 3 weeks later, Aunt Renee called at 7:30 in the morning. I was brushing my teeth and getting ready for work when her name flashed on my phone. For one stupid second, my stomach dropped like it used to. Then I answered. "It is an emergency," she said. "No hello, no shame, just theater. The utilities are being shut off. Your mother is beside herself. There may be a sheriff coming. Serena, you have to do something." Behind her, my mother wailed. The sound was high, desperate, perfectly calibrated to reach the little girl in me who had spent years believing love meant rescue. "What happened to the money from the mortgage?" "There is no time for interrogation," Aunt Renee snapped. "Your mother has nothing, zero cash. They could shut everything off today." "She might have no choice but to show up at your office." There it was. The threat. Wrapped in crisis. My professional life dangled like bait. "You have 2 hours," Aunt Renee said. 2 hours to fix this." She hung up. I sat on the edge of my bed with the phone in my hand. The old Serena would already be opening the banking app, already calculating what she could send without missing rent, already building an apology for letting the situation get this bad. But the new Serena had a spreadsheet. I scrolled through my text history with Mom. 3 weeks of silence after the email. No apology. No acknowledgement of the $68,000, no explanation, no proof, just silence until a new emergency needed oxygen. I closed the banking app before it could tempt muscle memory. Then I texted Aunt Renee, "I will meet you at the townhouse in 1 hour." Her reply came immediately. "Thank God. I knew you would come through." I dressed for work. Gray slacks, white blouse, minimal makeup. I looked tired in the mirror. Good. Let them see the version they expected. The drive to my mother's townhouse took 35 minutes. I made them wait 45. Not to be petty, though I admit there was a little satisfaction in it. I needed the extra 10 minutes to become absolutely still. Mom's car sat in the driveway. Aunt Renee's Mercedes sat behind it. I parked on the street and walked up the path slowly, counting each step. 17 from curb to porch. The flower beds were overgrown. Weeds tangled around the petunias my mother planted in spring and forgot to maintain after taking photos for Facebook. The door opened before I knocked. "Finally," Aunt Renee said, pulling me inside. "She is in the living room." My mother sat on the couch with a tissue box in her lap, mascara smudged under her eyes, shoulders curled, but her eyes were sharp, watching, measuring, waiting for the guilt to land. Her living room looked different once I knew what I had paid for. The velvet throw pillows on the sofa, the glass coffee table with brass legs, the framed abstract print above the fireplace, the fancy diffuser making the room smell like bergamot and debt. I remembered her sending me photos of each purchase, asking, "Isn't this beautiful?" I remembered replying with hearts because saying "what did this cost" felt rude when she had already made me feel rude for noticing anything. There were shopping bags tucked beside the hall closet. One still had tissue paper peeking out. A person facing a sheriff does not buy boutique candles. That detail steadied me more than anger did. I did not sit. "Show me the shut-off notice." Mom blinked. What? The utility company, the sheriff, the paperwork. Show me. Aunt Renee lifted her chin. There is no time for that. There is time if you want my money. The sentence changed the room. Mom reached toward the coffee table where a single envelope sat beside a decorative candle. Duke Energy. Final notice. Past due amount, $412. Not the mortgage, not $1,800. Utilities. I looked at the date. 3 days old. I will handle this one last time, I said. My mother's shoulders dropped with relief. Aunt Renee's expression softened into satisfaction. The glance they exchanged told me everything. This had not been about power being shut off. It had been about proving I could still be summoned. I pulled out my phone. I will pay the utility directly. Just send it to me, Mom said too quickly. Or write a check, whatever is easiest. Directly. Serena. I need the account login. For my records. My mother hesitated. This was not the plan. The plan had been cash, flexible, untraceable, familiar. But the bill was real enough, and she needed the performance to end with my payment. So she gave me the website, username, and password. I typed them into my phone while Aunt Renee watched like a guard. The portal opened. I entered my debit card, paid the $412, and saved the receipt. There, I said. Paid. Thank you, sweetheart. My mother's voice warmed instantly. I knew you would understand. Family helps family. I did not answer. I was already scrolling. Transaction history, statements, payment records, screenshots, 6 months of utility bills, paid mostly on time, no sheriff, no massive crisis, no evidence of the disaster Aunt Renee had described with such confidence. They had turned away from me by then, Mom dabbing her eyes, Aunt Renee murmuring about how tension could be healed if everyone softened. They thought the ATM had reopened. I should go, I said. I have work. Mom did not stand. Thank you, Serena. This means so much. Outside, I did not drive away. I pulled down the street, parked where the townhouse windows could not see me, and opened the account again. The login my mother gave me worked beyond utilities because she used the same password for everything. Of course she did. I found the linked bank dashboard in her saved browser connections. I know what some people will say, that I should not have looked. That privacy matters. It does. So does proof when someone threatens to destroy your life with lies. I opened transaction history. 2 days earlier, the Sapphire Casino, ATM withdrawal, $2,000, the day before the emergency, the day before she claimed zero cash. I stared at the screen until the words sharpened. Then I scrolled. More casino withdrawals, spa membership, designer outlet, wine bar downtown, department store charges, hair salon in West Haven every 2 weeks. The pattern was not hidden. It had simply never expected me to look. I screenshotted everything, every date, every amount, every location. I made a folder on my phone, evidence. Then I backed it up to cloud storage before my hands could start shaking. Inside the townhouse, my mother and Aunt Renee were probably celebrating. Probably deciding the next emergency would be car repairs, taxes, maybe medication. Something urgent enough to make me move fast and ask questions later. But I was not crying. I was smiling. The ATM was not open. It had just found the security footage. 4 days later, Mom texted, Serena, I need to talk to you about something urgent. My car is making a terrible noise and the mechanic says repairs will be $1,200. I cannot get to work without it. I read the message while my coffee cooled beside me. Same rhythm, urgency, fear, motherhood as invoice. This time, my pulse stayed slow. I opened the evidence folder and looked at the Sapphire Casino withdrawal again. Then I replied, let's talk. Tomorrow at 2. Riverside Cafe. Aunt Renee should come too. Mom responded in seconds. Why does Renee need to be there? This is between us, because she has been involved in every conversation about my financial responsibility to you. I will see you both there. I turned off my phone before she could argue. The cafe sat on the corner of Main and 3rd, full of round tables, too much sunlight, and waitresses who knew when to avoid drama. I arrived 10 minutes early with my laptop and a folder of printed screenshots organized by date. Mom and Aunt Renee arrived 15 minutes late. Mom wore a soft gray sweater and the pinched expression of a woman preparing to ask for money while pretending the request hurt her more than it hurt you. Aunt Renee wore church pearls and judgment. They sat across from me. Mom reached for my hand. I moved mine to my coffee cup. "Thank you for coming," I said. "Of course," Mom said sweetly. "Now, about the car. I really am in a bind. And I know you said you were done helping, but this is different. We can talk about the car." I opened my laptop. "First, I want to show you something." Aunt Renee sighed. "Serena, if this is about dragging up the past, it is about last week." I turned the screen. The transaction history filled it. When you called and said the utilities were being shut off when there was supposedly a sheriff at the door, I paid the bill directly. You gave me the login. My mother's face went still, which meant I could see the account. "That is a violation," she said. "2 days before your crisis," I continued, tapping the highlighted line, "you withdrew $2,000 at the Sapphire Casino." Aunt Renee leaned forward. Her mouth opened, closed, then opened again. "Vanessa," Mom's eyes flicked to her sister, "it was one mistake. You called me and told me she had zero cash," Aunt Renee said. I was stressed. "You told me Serena was letting you sit in the dark. I needed help. You lied to me." The words were quiet, dangerous. For the first time in my life, Aunt Renee's anger pointed somewhere else. I slid the printed pages across the table. $68,000 in 2 years. Mortgage transfers, emergencies, utilities, and now this. Casino withdrawals, spa charges, outlet stores, West Haven salon appointments, wine bars. Mom stared at the papers like they might bite. "You do not understand what it is like to be alone. I live alone. That is different." "Yes," I said. "I pay for it myself." Her eyes filled. I waited for the tears to become the performance, but even she seemed to realize the room had no audience for it. "I raised you," she whispered. Past tense. Her head jerked back. "What?" "You raised me. That job is over. And you got paid for it. $68,000 worth." Aunt Renee sat back, all the air gone from her righteousness. I opened the family group chat on my phone. 37 members. Cousins, aunts, uncles, people whose last names I sometimes forgot but whose opinions had apparently been very available under my mother's post. "I have not posted anything," I said. "But I will if this continues." Mom's voice cracked. "You would not." "Try me." I held her gaze. The caption writes itself. I did not abandon my mother. She spent the mortgage money at the casino. Aunt Renee covered her mouth. Mom looked smaller than I had ever seen her, not harmless, just smaller. "You would ruin me," she whispered. "No," I said, "I would correct you. People would judge me." "You let them judge me." She looked down at the table. I was scared. So was I. Every month, every time I checked my balance, every time you called crying, every time rent came due and I wondered if I could keep covering 2 homes while being mocked for the one I lived in. Aunt Renee's eyes filled then, but she did not ask me to comfort her. For once, nobody asked me to manage the emotion in the room. "Do not call about emergencies," I said. "Do not text about crises. Do not show up at my apartment. Do not come to my office." I changed every password connected to my accounts. I am done being the solution to problems you create. After everything I did for you? I stood and gathered my laptop. You keep saying that like it is a bill. It is not. And I am not paying it anymore. I walked out while they were still sitting there. The afternoon sun hit my face. My hands were steady. For the first time in 2 years, I felt lighter than air. 5 months changes everything and nothing at all. My new apartment has actual closet space, 2 bedrooms even though I live alone. The second one holds a desk, a bookshelf, and a reading chair I found at an estate sale. Fresh yellow tulips sit on the kitchen counter because I wanted them, not because they were marked down. My savings account has real numbers now, numbers that grow instead of vanish. The first night there, I slept badly. Not because I was unhappy, because peace was unfamiliar. No downstairs neighbor arguing through the vents, no radiator clanking like an old machine. No spreadsheet open beside my pillow because I was trying to decide which bill could wait, just a clean bedroom, a door that locked, and more space than my guilt knew what to do with. In the morning, I made coffee and stood in the second bedroom doorway. For 2 full years, that room had existed only as other people's money. It had been my mother's mortgage, my mother's emergencies, my mother's image, my mother's fear. Now it was empty space waiting for my life to enter. I ordered a desk that afternoon. Full price. No apology. The Easter gathering was at Aunt Renee's again. Same house, different woman walking in. I parked at the curb by choice, not obligation, not guilt. Choice. I carried a store-bought lemon cake because I was no longer auditioning for approval through labor. Inside, the house sounded like family chaos, kids running in the hallway, Uncle Harold's voice booming from the living room, ham and scalloped potatoes warming the air. My mother was there. I saw her car in the driveway. She sat in the corner of the dining room, quieter than I had ever seen her. Her wine glass was half full instead of constantly empty. She looked up when I walked in, and something crossed her face. Shame, maybe? Resentment, maybe? Something I no longer needed to name. I nodded once. She nodded back. That was all. "Serena," Brianna called, waving from near the kitchen. "That cake looks amazing." "It is from a bakery, so there is a chance." She laughed. Genuinely. The conversation moved around me differently. Aunt Renee asked about work with real interest. Uncle Harold talked about his new boat without comparing it to what I could not afford. Nobody mentioned the size of my apartment or my car or my alleged inability to plan for the future. They had adjusted. The family learned where the line was. No one tested it. Halfway through dinner, Cousin Malik made an offhand comment about helping his brother with rent. Family helps family, right? That is what we do. The table did not go silent, but I felt the awareness ripple through it. I set down my fork, took a sip of water, and smiled. Everyone is responsible for their own finances. Malik blinked, then nodded. Yeah, that is true too. The conversation moved on. Someone asked about dessert. Brianna told a story about her neighbor's terrible parking. The moment dissolved, ordinary and clean. Later, Dad found me by the coffee station. He squeezed my shoulder once, firm, proud. He did not say anything. He did not need to. On Tuesday, a younger woman from accounting stopped by my desk. Imani, maybe 24, with circles under her eyes that looked painfully familiar. "Can I ask you something?" she whispered. "Family stuff." We got coffee in the break room. She told me about parents who asked for money every payday. Guilt trips, threats, emergencies that always arrived after irresponsible choices. Her voice shook when she said everyone called her selfish for wanting to stop. I thought about the spreadsheet, the casino withdrawal, the 2 years of silence I mistook for love. "You can love people from a healthy distance," I told her. "You are not responsible for fixing problems they keep choosing." She cried then, quietly, with relief. I gave her my number and told her to call if she needed someone to remind her she was not cruel for wanting to breathe. That evening, I met Dad and Tasha at an Italian restaurant downtown. We ordered too much food and split a bottle of wine that cost more than I used to spend on groceries for a week. "To chosen family," Tasha said, raising her glass. Dad grinned. "To Serena finally choosing herself." We clinked glasses, and the sound rang clear. Driving home, the sunset spread across the horizon in orange and deep pink. My hands rested easy on the wheel. No phantom buzzing from my phone. No waiting for a crisis. No checking the rearview mirror like my mother's needs might appear behind me with flashing lights. My laptop sat on the passenger seat. One browser tab showed a photography class starting in June. Another showed flight prices to Colorado. Another showed a savings calculator I had opened just because watching the number grow made me feel a little giddy. The voice in my head sounded different now. Steady, clear, mine. "Family helps family," I said out loud to the empty car, "but help does not mean sacrifice." The light ahead turned green. I thought about my mother's favorite line, "After everything I did for you." I smiled at my reflection in the windshield. For once I had done something for myself. The road ahead belonged to me. The invisible provider was finally providing for the only person who had never exploited her. If your mother mocked your tiny apartment while secretly using your money to pay her mortgage, would you keep paying to avoid shame or cancel the transfer at the table? Tell me what you would have done when the casino receipts appeared.